Welcome back, Whisky fans, and welcome to day 7 of the Whisky Advent Calendar. No one really measures time anymore, do they? That's just not necessary, is it? Right, day 7. I'm definitely going to rip this thing in half one day. Trying my best not to. I don't know if there's any meaning behind the ones that are the double doors. Teeling. So this is our first Irish whisky. So last time we had our first non-Scotch whisky with the Whistle Pig. Now we've got our first Irish. So I believe this is Teeling's standard product. It's Teeling small batch. For want of a better word, it's their bottom rung entry on their product range. And I don't know if it's still the case, but it used to be either matured or finished in rum casks. So it'd be interesting to see if we can pick up any rum notes, or possibly they've stopped doing that. I think the last one that I tried was a rum cask, but we'll see. Just want to point out that I have cheated a little bit. You probably can't see that, but this is Bunnahabhain, my previous #1 seed on the leaderboard, and at the moment next to it I've got Whistle Pig 10-year-old, because I really love the Bunnahabhain 12-year-old. It's such a reliable, high quality, affordable, fantastic whisky. I've been there, it's a lovely place, really traditional, wonderful sherry casks, but I really like the Whistle Pig as well. I'm really hoping that eventually we're going to have something up here, because otherwise I'm going to have to pick between those two. Let's hope that doesn't happen. That's too difficult. Too close to call. Okay, let's get on with the Teelings. I have actually been to Teeling Distillery as well. Bottled at 46%, before I forget to mention that. Teeling is now the Dublin distillery, because although Jamesons like to sort of market themselves as the Dublin distillery, they're not anymore, because they used to be in Dublin, and no, they are not. I think they moved to somewhere in the southern extremes of the Republic of Ireland, and now the much more recently opened Teeling is towards the west side of the city, if I remember rightly. Teeling is now the only distillery in Dublin. They don't actually make a big deal of that. Do you think they probably would, or should? But let's try the whisky. So I will start this review by pointing out that I'm not the biggest fan in the world of Irish whisky. If anyone ever asks me what my favourite Irish whisky is, then I'm probably inclined to be facetious and answer Hazelburn. There's a bit of a whiskey geek joke for you. If you got that one, you're officially one of us. But saying that, Teeling is usually upper tier when it comes to Irish whisky. So there's quite some woodiness on the nose to this whisky, and that's one of the things that I get from, I think, probably everything that I've ever had from Teeling's distillery. Everything from the single grain and the small batch, which we've got here, up to the single malt, and even the really pricey stuff like the exclusive Brabazon releases. I tend to find that they are quite oak heavy. Now, a lot of Irish whisky, and to be fair, one of my main criticisms of Irish whisky is that it all tends to be fairly young, very spirity. You get, in the good ones, you get a big hit of fruitiness, and they're a bit thin, not very complex. You get a short finish, and to me it's just not the full experience with Teeling, and sometimes it's something that I think sets them aside from other Irish whisky distilleries and something that elevates them above. You do get a lot more influence from the cask, but I also think that quite often it's fairly overdone, and sadly I'm going to have to say that I think that's what's happening with this Teeling small batch that we've got here. You've got some really strong oaky notes, but it's overly spicy, overly astringent. It's It's quite planky. You got a lot of notes in there that I would associate with raw oak or overactive oak casks, the sort of thing that you might get from quarter casks or virgin oak. And I'm not a huge fan. There was a lot of raw oak notes going on in the Whistle Pig, which is equal first place on our leaderboard at the moment, but the Whistle Pig just does it so much better than this. There are some pleasant notes in this. I don't want to be too offensive, but I do think in a way that it is a little bit like a subpar Whistle Pig. You've got some reasonably nice creamy and biscuity notes in there, something a little bit like shortbread, and some vanilla and honey, some syrupy notes, so it's not all bad. And at times it can actually come across over quite American, quite bourbon, and I don't think that's because it's been matured in bourbon casks. It's just that syrupy, heavy woodiness that you quite often get in a lot of bourbons. Some mild orangey notes on the nose as well. I think if you really take your time and give it a little bit of time and a little bit of air, there is a touch of Irish fruitiness on there as well, sort of a fruit salad note the sort of thing that a lot of people associate with Irish whiskey. It's definitely in there. But there is, in my opinion, far too much cask influence in this one. A lot of people think that with small casks or very fresh casks, it matures the whiskey faster, and that's really not true. It does something quickly, but that's not maturation. Maturation is not just the impact of the cask, it's the mellowing process as well, and that's almost always something that you can't hurry up. So let's see how it tastes. To be fair, it probably tastes quite a lot better than it smells. On the palate, it's much better matured, and it's sweeter and more rounded. You're getting some sweet, syrupy, spicy, oaky notes in this, which again I'd actually compare to a good bourbon. And towards the late palate, that spicy oakiness, it develops quite nicely into a sugary, creamy graininess and some more biscuity notes. It's actually not bad. Really is quite sugary and syrupy on the palate. As for the finish, I'm going to say medium, sweet and slightly mild and slightly woody. I feel like I might upset a few people with this one, because I know that a lot of people really like their Teeling whiskies, but it's really just not for me. That nose, to me, is a little bit offensive. Which is a shame, because it actually tastes quite nice. It's far less oakiness on the palate than there is on the nose. I would also say that there's a fair bit of immaturity on the nose. It's quite spirity and a little bit harsh, and again that disappears mostly when you actually get to the palate. So I've got a good idea of where this is going on the leaderboard. So where do you think? YouTube community, where would you call it? And where do you think I'm going to put this one? Let me know in the comments where you would put this. Me personally, and I really hope that the people from Teeling aren't watching this, because I know that they really do take their whiskey seriously, and they're making a whiskey that they think is a really, really good product. But I just feel like it's not for me. I'm going to put this one around about here. A little bit higher perhaps. Leave space for two other things to sneak in above there. I don't think that it's up to the standard of the Benriach, but it is better than the Glenrothes. And now I feel like I'm being harsh on the Glenrothes, because the Glenrothes is only down there because it's seriously underpowered. It's an affordable cherry matured whiskey, but it's only down there because of the bottling strength, whereas the Teeling is in this lower half because there's just too many things about it that just aren't for me. But haven't had anything yet that I really hate, to be fair. I wonder if we're going to get any more world whiskies. Anyway, hopefully we'll get something better tomorrow and we can break the deadlock between the joint first place, because I don't want to have to do that. Let me know in the comments what you think of Teeling and what your thoughts are on Irish whiskey. Look forward to hearing from you. Cheers, thanks for watching.